Hey guys, it's Don for the OSBGL. I'm in the car heading down to a tournament on a Saturday morning. The tournament is in Hamilton, Ontario, which is about an hour and a half drive for me. Heading there on my own today. Garrett couldn't make it, little Andrew couldn't make it, and I'm going to be teaming up with Andrew Brock. It's a doubles tournament, so it's an 80-point tournament in our league. There is a twist on the composition. Basically, there's full access to allies are allowed, but no team member can take any models from a faction that his team member is taking models from. So, for example, I have Isengard as part of my army, so that means Andrew cannot take anything from Isengard. My army is going to be Isengard and Angmar, and Andrew's army is, I believe, 100% Mordor. You're allowed to take 400 points, so combined you have an 800-point army. I've got, on the Isengard side, I've got Vrasku, and I have 1 Berserker, and I have 9 pikemen. 4 of those have crossbows. How many is that? That's 10. And then I believe I have 1 orc with shield and 1 orc with shield and spear. So that's Vrasku and a full warband of 12. And then on the Angmar side, I have a Barrow White leading 12 troops. And they are, I think, 2 Warg Riders with shield, 9 orcs. 4 of those orcs have bows and spears, and 5 of them have shields, and then a cave troll. So that's my army, which is 2 full warbands. So what's that? 26 models. And Andrew's warband, I'm not 100% sure on what he's got, but he's basically got the Dark Marshal on Fell Beast, and oh boy, he's got a Spectre. He's got a whole pile of orcs, so it's mostly just a big mob of orcs. I'm forgetting something else in there though. He does have something else. But anyway, it's a big mob of orcs led by the Dark Marshal on Fell Beast with a Spectre. And maybe a Castellan. I forget. He's got something else in there. I'll show some pictures of the armies while this is running, so you'll be able to see what it is. So yeah, so this is an 80-point tournament in our league, and it's really being touted as like a tournament for beginners. And I think we're gonna have, it looked like we had 11 teams signed up, and then a bunch of singles. Like I think there were 3 or 4 singles. Plus a ringer team. So it looks like probably we'll end up with 12 teams, so 24 players. You know, maybe 13, who knows, maybe even 14, something like that. So it'll be a good turnout in the 20s. So 24 people, maybe a couple more. It should be good, and there's quite a few of our regulars are actually not able to make it due to other events happening today, golf tournaments and what have you. But I think there were like a surprising number of first-timers here. Something like 10, like 8 or 10 people that are first time at our tournaments. I think like last tournament that Evan ran in Guelph, there were, I believe, 4 new people, which was amazing. We were over the moon about that. And this one, there's like 8 or 10 new people. So it's like, you know, in the last couple of tournaments, we've really had a lot of new people show up. The missions for this tournament are domination, to the death, and hold ground. Our strategy on our army selection was basically to take 4 full war bands, which for 800 points is going to give us 52 models, which is a fairly large army. And the reason why is because all of the missions include break, so with that many models it'll be difficult for our opponents to break us. They are 2-hour long games. There's only 3 games, 2 hours, so they'll be long games, but still should be difficult to break our 52 model army. And all 3 of those missions have leader kill in them, so we're going with a leader in the Dark Marshal who is going to be difficult for our opponents to kill. Impossible to wound and difficult to kill. So in a sense it's a denial list. It's trying to deny any points for leader kill and breaking. So it's going to be all about the missions. And 2 of those missions are domination and hold ground, which obviously support large model count armies. So we should have a distinct advantage in those missions. Anyway, that's the plan. Okay, it's Monday morning. I didn't quite get the video finished. I figured this would be a quick video to put together, just still photographs and some audio, but surprisingly enough, wow, it takes a lot of editing. So fortunately, I have at least an hour commute to work every day on the highway, so I can actually make use of that time here. Our first game was against Colin and Lewis, and this was Colin's first tournament. He's a friend of Taylor and Lewis's and has started playing the game with them. And he was playing an army of Durin's folk, a pretty small army. I think he had something like 11 models, and he had what did he have? He had Balin with Durin's axe, and he had Dane, Durin's folk Dane, and he had a captain, and what else? He had a few warriors, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 warriors, and a ballista. So that was his army. And Lewis had an army consisting of 3 models. They were Aragorn Strider, and I don't know the gear they had. I imagine he would have had armor. Who else did he have? He had Fellowship Boromir mounted. Both those guys were mounted, and he had Faramir mounted. And I imagine Faramir probably had heavy armor, shield, and lance, but I'm not sure. We played Domination, so really rough mission for those guys. They had an army consisting of 14 models, and we had an army of 49 models playing Domination. So yeah, they were up against it from the start, and I think we kind of all knew what the outcome was going to be. But you know, one of the things they took the dwarf ballista, and it seemed like what they were trying to do was they were looking to put feathers in their cap with knocking down big targets. So that was kind of became their objective for the game. And you know, we deployed on each side of the river that ran down the center of the table, and Drew sort of set his 2 warbands up in the center, and I had 1 on each flank, and they spread their stuff out across the table, with the dwarf ballista was on our far right flank, right up against the edge of the table, where it had a good line of sight there. And became obvious right away that my crossbows were on our left flank, were out of position, so I ended up moving them for a couple of turns to the center of the table, and they sort of sat there for the rest of the game. Just, you know, they were in line of sight and range of most things, and pretty much every turn they were firing at something. And Colin and Lewis started moving everything they had in the direction of their ballista, and what it ended up was it looked pretty sure that we were going to have our two objectives, the central objective and the objective on our left on the far side of the table. So we sent like a couple of orcs to secure each one of those. And early on, so I decided that what I would do would be my warband of pikes and crossbows. I split off some of the pikes to go with Drew's guys to give the fight for, and the rest of them with crossbows sort of sat in the center of the table, you know, just taking shots of opportunity. And my other warband sort of moved up to the river, and I had 4 orc bows and a troll, and all of them were shooting at the ballista, and you know, there were a few other guys eventually around the ballista. So that was my job. Contribute some crossbow shots, try to take out the ballista, and it's like, Drew, okay, you go handle those 5 big characters. I thought that was fair. So Drew marched his 2 warbands across the river right in the center, and they started bringing their stuff towards it to deal with it. And Drew took the opportunity. Lewis left Boromir a little too far out, and you got to be careful when there's a ring wraith on a fell beast on the table. It's like if you come within like even 18 inches of them, you're gonna get compelled, right? And that's exactly what happened. He jumped across the river 6 inches, compelled Boromir, charged him, won the combat, knocked him down, threw 6 strikes at Boromir, and rolled 4 2s. And didn't kill Boromir. It did put 2 wounds on him. Retreated back across the river. And I think in a subsequent turn, Vrasku ended up killing Boromir with a well-aimed crossbow shot. Eventually what happened was a big scrum ended up in the center of the board with Dane, Faramir, and Aragorn, and I think that was all. I don't think he had even any dwarf warriors there. He might have, against just like a big mob of orcs. And you know, Dark Marshal was throwing transfixes in there, and you know, some were successful. I think probably 1 was resisted. We dehorsed Faramir and Boromir, but we weren't getting the luck on the combats. We were winning the combats, and you know, I think at one point he had Faramir surrounded, or almost, and like wailing on him with like tons of orcs, and just didn't kill him. But Dane, you know, he's got 3 might, and I think he did 3 heroic combats, and you know, it felt like 3 turns in a row he killed 4 guys, probably something like that. That's what it seemed like. So he was like mowing down orcs like crazy, and you know, so he picked up like probably 10 kills, you know, 11 kills, something like that, pretty quick. And same thing with Aragorn. We won a couple fights. I think we transfixed him once and couldn't kill him. And he was killing the odd guy here and there. And all of a sudden, we still weren't really close to being broken. But you know, before you knew it, they'd probably killed like 16 guys. And it was like, whoa! Like we're still fighting these 3 big heroes, and now instead of having like 24 guys there, you know, we have like 10 guys. So at that point I had moved my barrow white across, and I moved it right up, and it looked like there was only going to be maybe 1 more turn after this one. So I threw all 5 will on a paralyze against Aragorn, who by now I'm pretty sure had no will left. He probably had sapped will on him, and successfully paralyzed him. In the following combat, we did not kill him, and he rolled a 6. and recovered from the paralyzed. So that was kind of how it went with these guys. And you know, to be fair, that was good for them, because they were up against the wall in this mission. Like, there was really honestly very little chance they could win domination with those kind of numbers disadvantage. But yeah, so in the end, I think we killed Faramir, but did not kill Dane or Aragorn. The crossbow, or the ballista rather, it fired every turn, but as ballistas are wont to do, it probably only hit half the time. It scattered the majority of the time. I know one time he rolled a 1 on the scatter and just missed. So he did kill every time he scattered. Of course, we put the hit on an orc, because we had lots of them hanging about. And so he killed a handful of orcs, but he did get one. He rolled a 6 when he shot at the fell beast, killed the fell beast outright. So they were pretty excited about that. On the right flank, I had moved up my my warg riders, and I charged them into the ballista for a turn to keep it from shooting, but he quickly mopped them up. He had Balin and the captain over there, I think. So that didn't last long, and eventually he started marching a few dwarves across the river in a heroic attempt to, I don't know, get across the river. And so I think I killed, did I kill all of them? I killed a couple of them anyways. And my troll, amazingly, actually killed a couple of dwarves by throwing rocks, which was kind of cool. So yeah, anyway, that one went to us. It was a fun game, and I don't know what the victory point score was, but you know, we had 4 objectives, and we did end up breaking them, I believe, on the last turn. So but yeah, that was our first game. Fun game. This is a picture of one of the tables at the tournament, and the picture was taken by Jamie Bell, showing his army, and I don't know who his partner was, sorry. The table was donated by Les Manderville for the tournament, showing some large ruins and a battle mat that he ordered from the UK. Not sure from which company, but you can also see a bunch of ruined, like, column structures. And I talked to Les, and apparently he picked those up at an aquarium store and repainted them. So just a piece of terrain that you can get pretty easily there. Our second game was against Ben and Joe, and I don't know what was happening here to make Ben react like that with his that expression on his face. I imagine it was maybe it was when we killed Faramir's horse, and he was like, no. But yeah, Ben and Joe are both really competitive players. They both have really good records. Together they make a really good doubles team. Always bring strong armies. And we kind of knew that if we won our first 2 games, we would probably be playing these 2 guys in the 3rd game. We ended up drawing them in the 2nd game. And the mission we played here was, what was it? Hold ground. So a Maelstrom deployment. Just as an aside, Green Dragon Podcast has a series of audio recordings on, I think they must have them on all of the 6 base missions, and I've listened to the one on Hold Ground a couple of times recently, and they're excellent but audio recordings. Really recommend you listen to them. They really dissect the missions and how to play them. So I had all that information in my head, and probably half of it I forgot, but the one thing that's very important is try to keep your forces together in this mission. So what we did was we rolled to deploy the Barrow Wight first, because he has no might, can't control where he's going to come on. So he came on across the other side of the board from us, and that's where we were going to try to get all the rest of our guys to come on. And just through fortunate rolling, we had all of our warbands start on that side of the board all together in one big clump. They got a little unlucky on theirs. They had 2 warbands come on the first turn, and 2 they also came on the board across from each other, so that's not good. And one of them was dwarves. Joe was playing Durin's Folk, one warband of Durin's Folk led by the King's Champion, and his other warband was Elves led by Legolas. Ben had a warband led by Malbeth, which I guess pretty much consisted of Arnor warriors, and his other warband was led by his favorite character, I think, is Faramir mounted heavy armor shield. So second game in a row we played with him. I think he probably had about 5 Knights of Minas Tirith with him and a bunch of foot troops. So all of our stuff came on. Everybody moved towards the center on the first turn. Second turn, both of their other warbands came on, and they brought them both on sort of kitty corner, on one corner of the table, sort of at the end of our battle line, right where my barrow white was. And pretty sure they brought them on there because they thought with both warbands they could probably clean up my barrow white and troll warband quickly and then rush to the center. Honestly, not a good idea. They talk a lot about that in the Green Dragon article, and unless you can be pretty sure you're going to wipe out what you're trying to double team, like in one turn or 2 at the most, don't do it. Because what always ends up happening is, in this scenario, or in this mission rather, is you end up with this sideshow battle off on the edge of the table that, unless there is an army general there, is almost meaningless. Certainly it can contribute to breaking an army, but it really just ends up meaning that all those troops that are fighting in that battle just won't get to the center and contribute to the most important part of the mission. That's kind of what ended up happening in this game. They put 2 of their warbands against one of ours. We sent the Dark Marshal over with the Fell Beast, but you know, he's got like really flexible movement, so we weren't really concerned there. As long as we could keep him alive, he could easily get to the center. And we rushed to the center with the other 3 warbands we had. And in that I'll call it sort of the sideshow combat, we had 2 monsters in the combat. All we really wanted to do is knock down Faramir. Once that happened, didn't really care what happened over there. So he charged in. He got priority on the second turn. He got the charge off. I don't know, I guess he just didn't see or overlook the fact that my troll that was in kind of got caught in the second rank, and so he was sort of discounting it. But I had a spear, right? So I had a fight 6 in that fight against the charging Faramir, who had hit 2 orcs, and Andrew brought in the Dark Marshal on the sort of on the far end of the line to engage just one warrior, because you're just looking in this situation to set up a hurl. So I had a good chance to win the fight against Faramir because I had higher fight, and regardless of what happened there, Dark Marshal was probably going to win his fight against one lonely guy. So I won the combat against Faramir. Rolled a pile of dice, all 1s. Didn't even kill his horse. But I did win the fight and pushed him back. Dark Marshal then won his fight got the hurl off, knocked Faramir off of his horse, and probably one or two other guys. And honestly, that was kind of it for that flank. Once that happened, it was, yeah, it wasn't going to be a big threat anymore. He still had some mounted characters over there, so we had to watch that. He was still certainly capable of cleaning up what we had over there. But as far as the objective of the mission was to get to the center, all those troops there were probably not going to get to the center of the table after, you know, we'd been fighting for a couple of turns. And the only thing we had to be concerned about was not letting the Dark Marshal get killed. And I think he was under threat at one point. He did almost get trapped, but we were able to bring in some helpers and pull some guys off, and able to keep that situation from turning south on us. And we did end up getting lucky, and we were able to kill Faramir. I think my troll got him. I believe we might, I can't remember now, but pretty sure we got the priority after he got knocked off his horse, so I was able to engage him when he was on the ground. I could be wrong here, but killed Faramir, you know, and we were fighting with Legolas and his guys over there. But you know, what ended up happening was those guys just all stayed over there and fought for the whole battle, right? So they ended up out of it. In the center, we rushed to the center. We had better deployment. We deployed right in the center of our table edge, so it was a direct line to the center, the shortest distance. So we had probably 2.5 war bands get to the center. I think I counted, we had probably 31 guys, and they were going to probably have something like 23 or 22 guys coming to the center. And in this case, you know, I had sort of argued with Andrew about taking a Spectre, and he ended up taking the Spectre, and wow, Spectre against Arnor warriors, oh, amazing. So every turn almost he was like fell lighting an Arnor warrior and just moving him in the opposite direction 6 inches every turn. So it really broke up his little phalanx of Arnor warriors, which is normally like ridiculously strong defensively, especially with Malbeth leading them. But it ended up that, you know, he had a couple of rangers and they were hanging back to shoot, and we were compelling or fell lighting Arnor warriors back here, there, and so his force ended up sort of strung out there. So and the dwarves were slower, of course, and we got to the center like a full turn at least ahead of them, and I got 1 turn of shooting off with my crossbows, and I think I dropped two of his dwarves, so that reduced their numbers even more. And when the combat happened on the Arnor side, he just didn't have the strength there, and you know, yeah, we both lost guys, but you know, we were losing orcs, he was losing Arnor warriors, and you know, let's say we both lost 4 guys or something like that. And with his force being strung out there, all of a sudden he just didn't have anything there, and we were really just fighting against the dwarves. And you know, we fought for 1 or 2 rounds of combat before the game ended, and we completely held our own there. Nothing dramatic happened. He killed some guys, we killed some guys, and the game ended. And I think we had a pretty solid control of the center. And as often happens in that mission, you know, you kind of realize what you did wrong at the end or what you did right, and deployment plays a big part in that mission, of course. But it was a great game. Love playing those guys. 2 really good guys, and I think those 2 guys have to be the most well-traveled couple of guys in our league, like with the most number of miles traveled under their belts. They both live fairly far away, and they've come to a lot of tournaments, so hats off to those guys. Played a great game. Yeah, so that was our second game. Got another win there against a tough opponent. and I'm just pulling the work now, so I'm gonna have to quit talking, and I will come back with the third game maybe on the way home. Here's a picture of the hall. Just a bunch of games going on, and you can see the hall is a really good size. We had 24 people in there, plus you know, a couple of ringers and TO, and we had lots of room in there. We could easily hold a tournament of like 34 people, maybe, easily, I would say. And I know there is another adjoining room. Last time I was here was for like a small gaming convention that they held, and there's another room of almost the same size right next door, and I believe there is like a kind of a cafeteria sort of attached to it, where you can order food and that. So quite a good venue there. Okay, so game 3. We were going into game 3 with 2-0 record, and as it turned out, there was only one other team with a 2-0 record, and that was Will and Zach. And there are a couple of young guys. I believe this was their second tournament, because they were at Evan's tournament in Guelph, and I did not get to play them there. They're from Peterborough, I believe, and I'm gonna say these guys are up-and-comers in the league for sure. When we went over to the table and I saw their army, I was worried right away. They were playing dwarves and elves. So I forget which guy had which army, but one of them had Durin's folk, and the other guy had a mix of Lothlorien and High Elves, and it was a big army. We were playing to the death in this matchup, so it ended up coming down to the fact that we had a banner and they didn't, ended up dictating how the game was going to be played. But in terms of numbers, like, we had 49 models, and well, let me see if I can figure this out. They had Gimli was one of their generals, that'd be 90. Then they had Balin with Durin's axe, so that'd be 85, so it's 175. So they had 225 of troops left over for Durin's folk, figuring an average of 10 points a model. They had about 22 warriors. There were no Iron Guard in there. We had around 24 models, maybe one less than that, I'm not sure. And his partner had, what did he have? He had the twins on foot, and I only know that they had the upgrade for bows, and I'm not 100% sure on their point costs, but and they had Rumil, which I believe was shield is 75. They had a mix of, I think it was mostly high elves with spear and shield, but there were some wood elves with some spears and bows in there. The elf player had probably about 17 or 18 models, and the dwarf player probably had 23 or 24. So they were over the 40 mark. I would say they were probably 41 models at a guess, and better models than what we had. Ours were almost all orcs. So that was a big concern. And of course, all of their heroes are fight 6. So normally great for dealing with ring race, but we did have the Dark Marshal, which is fight 6 as well. But still, it's a concern. And it ended up that we both set up our battle lines, and then we quickly figured out that, you know, they were going to have to come to us because we had the banner. We weren't going to move towards them because they would have just mowed us down. I think they had, I believe they had 9 elf bows plus 5 dwarves with bows. and that was a heck of a lot more shooting than we had. In comparison, we had 5 crossbows, including Vrasku, and I think 7 orc bows, and a troll that can throw a rock. So it ended up that they came to us, and even with them walking towards us, they were matching us in kills for shooting. You know, we would kill a guy here and a guy there, but you know, they would move a few of their archers up 3 inches and shoot and kill a guy here and there. So you know, they were matching us there. And that's how the game went. It went that way for probably 4 turns at least, while they had to cross the table. And as they got closer, Drew immediately sap will on Rumil, and I believe he got that off and killed all his will off. And they went for discretion being the better part of the valor, and Rumil turned around and went into the back ranks with some of their archers, while the rest of their army moved forward. And yeah, we were those guys that when they got to within charge range of us, we backed up. So yeah, we pulled that super craptastic move on them, and you know, to their credit, they were they were really good about it. But we didn't want to engage them where they were, just because the lines weren't good for us. So we let them move forward one more time, and there was a lot of fighting broke out right near the end of the game all across the line. At that point, they had put a wound on Vrasku with shooting. And God's honest truth, I swear, they splashed probably 6 or 7 shots at him 2 turns in a row and didn't kill him, which probably if you rolled that out 10 times, you'd kill him more times than not. And they took his fade off and took a wound off, and you know, that would have been the swing they needed to win the game. So we just got lucky on those dice rolls. Yeah, so we fought all along the battle line there, and you know, we both did fairly well. We were paralyzing, and you know, paralyzed Gimli a couple of times, and there were some transfixes thrown. No big heroes were killed. Warriors were dropping on both sides. On the very last turn, there were a bunch of heroic moves called, which could have resulted in some heroes dying. It didn't. He did manage to kill my troll in a single round of combat with one of the twins and 1 or 2 helpers. I was just worried that Vrasku was going to go down and give them the win, and of course Andrew had to leave me alone at the table on the last turn of the last game of the tournament, and he left when it was 2-1 for me, or for us. So if I had lost the game, I would have never heard the end of it. We ended up hanging on by the skin of our teeth and winning that one 2-1. Those 2 guys, I really got the impression from playing them, they're really friendly, great guys to play. I really got the impression that they play the game a lot and they know their army inside and out. So yeah, I think these guys are gonna do well in the league going forward. So that's just throwing out a little prediction there. But yeah, that was our game 3, and we hung in there for a very narrow margin of a 2-1 win in that game, and we ended up going 3-0. Well, I guess that's it for my video of the Ring Goes South tournament. Another great tournament for the OSBGL, and it'll always be a special one for me because I think after, what, 25 or 30 tournaments I've been to, that's my first tournament win. I've come in third a bunch of times, come in second a few times, but I finally figured out the secret to winning a tournament, and that's get on Andrew Brock's team. That is a good way to win a tournament, and I promise I won't hog that spot, and I'll let someone else be his teammate next time, so we can all get a win in the league. And just wanted to say a special thanks to Taylor Stinstad for TOing the event. Did a great job. And of course to our hosts there, Barnaby Orr and the Hamilton Tabletop Gaming Society. And just wanted to end this video with, I think, the most important picture of the series, and just remember to give thanks that we're able to just play with toy soldiers. And speaking of that, get your toy soldiers out and come and play some Lord of the Rings with us. Look how much fun it is. Okay, see you guys next time.